still are, and they ended up expanding across 40 U.S. markets. So I did that as my last corporate gig, and then in 2008 I hung my own shingle and started in.
Is that what they call it in your business? Hanging your own shingle? Is that just something I haven't heard?
I don't know. I just put up my own little license.
Got
there,
it.
And so.
Got it. Well, Matt, so when you go in, you go to your own business. Your experience was obviously vast. I mean, you've been doing the commercial real estate for a long time. You've seen the cycles.
Yes.
And, we talked a little bit about before the show, before we started, just on, first of all, kind of those three big aspects that you work on within commercial real estate. Talk a little bit about the three big aspects in commercial real estate. And then what I want to do is kind of get into how that affects small businesses.
Sure. Basically, what we divide it down into three segment groups, which is acquisitions, divestitures, and then leasing. And those things can take a myriad of different paths and courses, but those are the three main principal things that Royal Commercial does. So what was the other question?
Well, so, in these, you have people buy houses, buy commercial properties, right? These are the buildings out there.
For either owner, user, or investment opportunities, yes.
Okay. And then they lease them. And then the other one was this, ongoing opportunities and growth. I mean, talk a little bit about that.
Well, in growth in my firm or just in the general community?
Just in the general community. I mean, people, I think that people think, when people when a company buys a building, I don't know that they always consider the fact that, well, they're also, they're buying it to use, but it's also kind of another an investment in their portfolio.
Yeah, and that kind of depends on the objectives of each individual firm. There's owner-user buildings, and those are usually smaller family-run businesses where they're going to be, have longevity in the industry. But however, some of these more dynamic firms, especially tech firms, they generally tend to go through the leasing route because shareholders want them to use their funds not to acquire assets, but to improve their products and invest in their people versus property.
I guess if you're investing in a company, it would make sense that you would, if you wanted to go invest in real estate, you would go do that, right?
Correct.
So then how do you see with small businesses, because, I don't know if there's anybody who doesn't know somebody who owns a small business.
Yeah. In this area, here in the Pacific Northwest, we have an amazing amount of small entrepreneurs, small businesses. A lot of them run from their home, but then a lot of people say, hey, we've outgrown this, especially if they're retail, in the retail industry, or if
they have twins.
Yes.
That would also, right?
Yes. So, that being said, focusing on, and inside that segment, there's your industrial warehouse, your flex space, office space, and then your retail space. And you'll find a lot of the franchisees go through the retail side. Pick, pack, or ship, distributors, manufacturers, they'll go more the industrial side, flex space, and then obviously pure business, whether it be a legal firm, tech firm, insurance, whatever. Those will stick with the office area.
And so when do you think, you've worked, you obviously advise people. I mean, at what point in time do people say, you know what, maybe it's time to go rent a space? Or maybe it's time to buy a space, because it's a big leap, either one, whether it's home business to leasing an office or, leasing an office to buying one. How do you advise people on when it's time?
Each industry, each sector, each element is subjective and different for the individual business unit. And it's really an individual choice. It depends on how long you want to keep the company, how many employees you're going to have, what your projected growth is. Because if you do go out and buy a building for your business, you outgrow the business, now you've become a landlord, because now you have to move to another building you're leasing and you own this one. So that can turn your business model into something that you didn't intend for it to be, which is, now I'm a landlord and I'm still leasing because I've outgrown my space. Or what we experienced here in the last several years, which is you bought a building in 2006, your company isn't doing very well, you've laid off some employees, now you're stuck with an asset that you're maybe underwater on. So it is something that you really should contemplate, talk with both a real estate professional, your CPA, tax advice, and a lawyer to make sure that is truly the right business decision for you.
It's funny you say that, because in some ways, people should be doing the same thing when they buy a residential house and really understanding their finances.
Yes.
But it becomes so much less emotional and so much more really financial at this point.
Yeah, in the commercial side, there's really not a whole lot of emotion inside built into the decision. It might be convenience as far as that emotion to where you're geographically located or your distribution channel or your clients, but it's not anywhere near what residential would be. Yeah,
Right.
A spreadsheet. Yeah.
So, okay, let's say, somebody's got a small business. They've been running it out of their house. It gets bigger or they have twins. Whatever it is, somebody's moving out and it ain't the twins, right?
Right.
So if you're talking to somebody who's ready to make that transition from small business, and there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there right now
Absolutely.
who have started to make their own way rather than maybe going the corporate route, or maybe they got laid off.
Right.
What are some of the most important things, or what is most critical when somebody decides to take that leap of faith, I guess, to go lease a place rather than run a business out of their home?
Good, very good question. First thing someone should do is sit down with one or more real estate professionals, commercial real estate professionals, and if you can get some good advice from an attorney or your accountant, or go through a referral network, however you do that, but locating a good commercial real estate agent to sit down and educate you on the process, what it takes to get in, what it takes to get out of the lease, what type of facilities operations setup you're going to need, what the additional costs are, have them explain to you how a commercial lease works, whether it's a full service, a triple net, modified gross. Those are all key elements that you need to educate, your listeners need to educate themselves on before going out and signing a lease. Because let me tell you, it's the easiest thing in the world to go out and get a lease. You can just walk up to any landlord and say, I like it, and they'll give you a lease and you can sign it. That's probably not the best way to go.
No kidding.
Yeah. So
sounds like people buying houses about 6 years ago, right? Oh, I can buy it. Good. Where do I sign?
Yeah, and I can afford it. And what's a rent escalation? What are triple nets? What are CPI index increase? So
the terms of the lease, I mean, it's much different than maybe leasing a house because there's so many different variables.
Oh heavens, yeah. And it depends. If you're starting a new company, you're probably not going to have stellar credit in your business firm. So the landlord's most likely going to want some form of personal guarantee. And then that means now you've just, and I'm not an attorney by any stretch of the imagination, but you've pierced that corporate entity and protection, and now your
home equity,
if you have any, your home equity is in peril.
You could be in residential.
So that's one of the things, and what I've seen the most in the last 4 or 5 years here is the people are doing more due diligence, but there's never enough that you can do. You just find a trusted professional, and you ask every question that you can imagine. You play every scenario that you think could possibly go wrong. And what I find a lot is some of these business owners, and they're all optimistic, euphemistic, however we want to say, they all know the plan's going to work, but you also have to plan, as easy it is to get into the lease, you need to plan on an exit strategy for you and your business. And whether that's a 1, 3, 5, 10-year window, all those factors need to be calculated in, and you need to sit down and figure that out.
Well, Matt, I mean, coming from you've done transactions in 38 states and 13 countries around the world.
Yeah.
And that is advice. It's priceless if you're going on that track, because I think people can get caught up. As much as you say it's not as emotional, when you have a little baby that is your business and something comes up and it's got the nice view, and all of a sudden I think people can get caught up a little bit in the emotion when you sign that first lease.
Yes, and one of the things that, and I'm not talking about anybody in particular, but
John.
No, it's like I ask a client or a prospective client, I say, have you done leasing before? And they go, oh yeah. And it's like, oh yeah, there's nothing to this. And they've maybe done 2 or 3, or they're an executive of a firm and they've done 3 in 15 years. Well, I don't know anybody who's an expert doing something 3 times in 15 years. So again, you locate, vet, interview, select a trained professional to take them into your trust and explain to you, have them explain to you what their business model is and how what their plans for their business are. And then it's up to the broker to go ahead and draft, structure the lease and the terms
and negotiate.
And negotiate. And it's, Our firm maybe does it a little different than most, but every firm submits an LOI or a letter of intent, and it's one volley, two volley, and we're all in agreement. Well, that's not really how it. That's how it usually. That's a standard form. But
Matt works harder for you. Matt, we got to go to break. Okay. Thank you so much for joining us. Truly, it's great to see you. And if you stick around a little bit, we'll have you come back on. We'll have a few more discussions with the whole group. Matt Royal, good friend of mine, and now a good friend of the show. Thanks so much for stopping by. Hang out for a little bit longer, because up next, people think about the emotions or maybe non-emotions of leasing space. Did you know you should probably take the exact same non-emotional route if you're buying an investment property, especially a flip? Stay tuned. We're going to tell you why. You're listening to Brashenomics.